She attended a wedding as a stranger, until the most powerful billionaire CEO in the room kissed her in front of everyone and said, "She's mine." What no one knew was he chose her for a reason, and loving him would cost her everything. No one noticed her at first. She stood near the edge of the grand ballroom, holding a glass of champagne she hadn't asked for, wearing a dress she'd bought on sale, surrounded by wealth she didn't belong to. This wedding wasn't meant for people like her. Crystal chandeliers, private security, guests who spoke in hushed voices about mergers and millions. She was only there because she was filling in for a friend at the last minute. Just another face in the crowd. Until him. The room shifted the moment Alexander Cross arrived. Billionaire. Untouchable. People straightened. Conversations died. Cameras discreetly turned. He wasn't smiling. He scanned the room once, sharp, calculating, until his gaze locked onto her. And then he walked straight toward her. Her heart stuttered. He didn't know why. Before she could step back, Alexander stopped in front of her. Close enough that she could smell his cologne. Close enough to feel the heat of him. "You," he said quietly. "Me?" she asked, confused. He didn't answer. Instead, he kissed her. Right there. In front of everyone. Gasps tore through the room. Phones came out. Whispers exploded. When he finally pulled away, his hand still rested on her waist like it belonged there. "She's with me," Alexander said calmly, his voice carrying across the stunned ballroom. "The woman I love." Her world tilted. She didn't even know his name. And yet, in that moment, the most powerful man in the room had just changed her life forever. Because that kiss. It wasn't impulsive. It was intentional. And she was about to discover why she had been chosen. The silence after the kiss lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then the ballroom erupted. Whispers crashed into each other. Cameras flashed without shame. Names were spoken in disbelief. A few guests laughed nervously, waiting for someone to admit it was a joke. No one did. Alexander Cross turned slightly, positioning himself between her and the crowd, as if shielding her from the storm he had created. "Smile," he murmured. "Just for 10 seconds. Her hands trembled. "Why?" "Because if you don't," he said calmly, "they'll tear you apart." She swallowed and forced her lips upward, every instinct screaming that she should run. But his hand was firm on her waist. Unmovable. They were escorted out through a private exit within minutes. The moment the doors shut behind them, she stepped away. "What the hell was that?" she demanded. Alexander loosened his cufflinks like nothing unusual had happened. "A solution." "To what problem?" she snapped. He finally looked at her, really looked. "My problem." The car ride was silent, heavy with unspoken tension. Her phone vibrated non-stop. Unknown numbers. Social media exploding. Messages she didn't have the courage to open. When they arrived at a towering glass building that scraped the sky, reality crashed in. This wasn't a prank. This was his world. Inside his penthouse office, Alexander poured 2 drinks. "You'll stay with me publicly," he said. "For a while." Her laugh was sharp. "Absolutely not." He slid a folder across the desk. Inside, her name. Her past. Things she had never shared with anyone. Her breath hitched. "I didn't choose you randomly," he said. "And I didn't do this for romance." She felt exposed. Vulnerable. "Then why me?" she whispered. "Because you're untouchable by my enemies," he replied. "And they need to believe you matter to me." Her stomach dropped. "So I'm what?" "Bait." "A shield," he corrected. "And a distraction." She stood abruptly. "Find someone else." "I can't." "Why?" "Because you already went viral," he said calmly. "And walking away now would destroy you." The truth stung because it was real. She was already trapped. "What do I get out of this?" she asked quietly. Alexander met her gaze. "Protection. Privacy. And a contract that ends this the moment you say so. He paused. And my word that I won't touch you again without your permission. Her heart raced. She didn't trust him. But the world already thought she belonged to him. And saying no might cost her everything. When she finally nodded, relief flickered across his face, gone as quickly as it appeared. Good, he said. Because tomorrow morning you move in. Her eyes widened. Move in. He allowed himself a faint smile. People believe lies more easily when they look real. Moving into Alexander Cross's penthouse felt like stepping into someone else's life. Everything was glass, steel, and silence. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city like it was something he owned, which she suspected he practically did. Staff moved efficiently, barely acknowledging her presence, already trained to treat her as if she belonged there. He didn't. Her suitcase sat unopened in the guest room, while the reality of what she'd agreed to pressed down on her chest. This was no longer a rumor. This was her life now. The next morning, headlines were everywhere. Billionaire CEO debuts mystery woman at elite wedding. Alexander Cross in love? Alexander scanned the news over coffee, unreadable. You should stay off social media, he advised. She crossed her arms. You turned me into a headline. And I'm keeping you alive, he replied calmly. She hated how safe she felt when he said it. Rules were established quickly. Public affection only when cameras were present. No questions about his business. No sharing details of her private life. And most importantly, no real emotions. This is temporary, Alexander reminded her. We play our parts, then we walk away. She nodded. Neither of them believed it. Days passed, filled with rehearsed smiles and staged appearances. He was different in public. Charming, attentive, protective. His hand rested on her lower back like it belonged there. He leaned close when he spoke, murmuring things meant only for her, making the world believe. But behind closed doors he was quiet. Guarded. Sometimes she caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. Like he was trying to figure her out. Or maybe himself. One evening, after a long charity event, she kicked off her heels and sighed. Does pretending ever get easier? She asked. Alexander loosened his tie. You stop pretending after a while. She studied him. Is that what happened to you? He didn't answer. Instead, he poured 2 drinks and handed one to her. Their fingers brushed. It was brief. Accidental. But electricity shot through her anyway. He noticed. His jaw tightened. You should keep your distance, he said quietly. Because of the contract? She asked. Because I don't break my own rules, he replied. And what happens if you do? His gaze darkened, dangerous and honest. People get hurt. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the way he touched her only when required, and how careful he was not to touch her when it wasn't. For the first time she wondered if the lie they were living was protecting her. Or protecting him. The rain started just as they returned from another public appearance. Alexander's jacket was draped over her shoulders before she even realized she was cold. Cameras had already disappeared, but he didn't pull away right away. Thank you, she said softly. He nodded once, as if lingering any longer would cost him something. Later that night, the penthouse was unusually quiet. She found him alone in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, staring at nothing. The powerful CEO the world feared looked tired. You don't have to stay up, he said without turning around. I wasn't tired, she replied. Why? But he let it pass. She watched him pour a drink he didn't touch. Why that wedding? She finally asked. Why that moment? Alexander's shoulders stiffened. I needed something public. Undeniable. And I was convenient? He exhaled slowly. You were human. The word surprised her. I spend my life surrounded by people who want something from me, he continued. Power. Money. You wanted none of it. She stepped closer. You don't know that. I do, he said quietly. Because you looked terrified when I kissed you. Her breath caught. He turned to face her. I chose you because you were real. Silence settled between them. Thick. Harsh. You shouldn't have done that, she said, barely above a whisper. I know. Then why do I feel like you saved me? His eyes softened. Because you didn't belong in that room. And neither did I. Thunder cracked outside. Without thinking, she reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. His thumb brushed her knuckles, tentative, like he was testing something fragile. This isn't part of the act, she said. I know, he replied. For a moment, it felt like the world held its breath. Then footsteps echoed down the hall. Reality rushed back. Alexander stepped away first. This ends badly if we forget what this is, he said. And what is it? She asked. He looked at her, something raw flickering behind his eyes. A lie that's starting to feel true. That night, alone in her room, her heart wouldn't slow. Because the danger wasn't his enemies. It was the way he was starting to look at her. And the way she was beginning to hope he wouldn't stop. The rumors started the next morning. Not about love, but about motive. News outlets dissected every second of Alexander's life. Analysts questioned his judgment. Rivals smiled too easily. And then the headlines turned sharp. Who is she, and what is she hiding? She felt it before she saw it. The shift in the air, the tension in the penthouse, the way staff suddenly avoided eye contact. Alexander noticed too. They're circling, he said calmly, scrolling through reports. They always do. Because of me, she replied. He didn't correct her. The first confrontation came at a gala. A woman approached Alexander without hesitation. Beautiful, confident, wearing history in the way she touched his arm. You disappear for months, the woman said lightly, eyes flicking to her. And come back with a stranger. I came back with a decision, Alexander replied. The woman smiled thinly. Careful. Emotions make you predictable. Her stomach twisted. For the first time, jealousy burned, not because she owned him but because she suddenly realized others once had. Later that night she finally asked, How many women like me have there been? She said quietly. None, Alexander answered immediately. She laughed, hurt slipping through. That's not an answer. He stepped closer. You're not like them. And what am I then? She asked. He hesitated. That pause did the damage. The next day the attack went public. A leaked story accused her of manipulating Alexander. Of being planted. Of chasing his money. The comments were cruel. Alexander shut it down fast. Lawsuits, statements, pressure. But the damage was done. She read every word. I can't do this, she said that night, voice shaking. I didn't sign up to be hated. You signed up to be protected, he said firmly. But you didn't promise you'd care. The words hit harder than she intended. Alexander went still. I don't let myself care, he said quietly. Because when I do, people use it against me. She looked at him then, not the billionaire, not the CEO, but the man standing alone in a glass palace. And what if I don't want to be your shield? She asked. What if I want to matter? For the first time he had no answer. He packed a bag that night. Not to leave forever. Just far enough to breathe. Alexander watched from the doorway, hands clenched at his sides. If you walk out, he said, everything changes. She met his eyes, heartbreaking. Then stop pretending this doesn't already matter. She left. And for the first time since the wedding kiss, Alexander Cross realized the lie hadn't protected him at all. It had exposed the one thing he couldn't afford to lose. The penthouse felt colder without her. Alexander noticed it immediately, not in the temperature but in the silence. No soft footsteps. No quiet sighs at the window. No presence that made the vast space feel human. He told himself it was temporary. Everything in his life was. Work consumed him the way it always had. Meetings blurred together. Decisions were made. Billions moved at the sound of his voice. To the outside world, Alexander Cross was still untouchable, sharp, ruthless, in control. But at night, control abandoned him. He replayed the moment she walked away. The way her shoulders squared, like she was holding herself together with sheer will. The way she hadn't looked back. That hurt more than any enemy ever had. She stayed in a small apartment across the city. No security team. No luxury. Just space to think. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't being watched or photographed. Yet she felt more exposed than ever, because now there was no lie to hide behind. He missed him. That was the truth she couldn't escape. The media didn't wait long. Speculation exploded when she vanished from Alexander's side. Rumors of a breakup. Claims of manipulation. Stories painting her as a gold digger who'd failed. Alexander shut them down with cold efficiency. But this time he didn't do it for his reputation. He did it for her. 3 days later, a rival made a move. A hostile acquisition. Aggressive. Public. Designed to weaken Alexander by proving he was distracted. They were right. For the first time in his career, Alexander hesitated. And that terrified him. That night, he stood alone in his office, city lights reflecting off the glass, and finally admitted the truth he'd been avoiding. He hadn't chosen her because she was safe. He'd chosen her because she made him feel something real. And losing her hurt more than losing power ever could. He went to her. No entourage. No announcement. No armor. Just a man standing outside a modest building, heart pounding harder than it ever had in a boardroom. When she opened the door and saw him, surprise flashed across her face, followed by guarded calm. "I didn't come to drag you back," Alexander said quietly. "I came to tell you the truth." She crossed her arms. "I'm listening." "I don't know how to love without control," he admitted. "And you terrify me, because I can't control what I feel for you." Silence stretched. Then she spoke. "I didn't need a billionaire," she said softly. "I needed honesty." Alexander nodded. "Then let me start there." For the first time, the most powerful man in the room had nothing to offer but himself. And for once, that might be enough. Alexander didn't wait for forgiveness. He stood there, hands empty, heart exposed, letting the silence do what power never could. "I don't want you as a shield," he said quietly. "I don't want you as a distraction. I want you because I can't imagine walking into another room without wondering if you're there." Her breath hitched. "You don't get to decide that alone," she replied. "I know," he said. "That's why I'm here. Not to claim you. To ask." The word hung between them. She stepped back, letting him inside, but not closer. "I was invisible before you kissed me," she said. "And suddenly I was everyone's target." "I would take that back if I could," Alexander said. She shook her head. "No. Because now I know I matter. I just need to know why I matter to you." He didn't hesitate this time. "Because you see me," he said. "Not the CEO. Not the name. The man who built walls so high he forgot how to let anyone in." Her defenses wavered. He reached for her hand, slowly, giving her time to pull away. He didn't. His thumb brushed her palm, tentative, reverent. "This isn't a contract anymore," he said. "This is me choosing you, even if it costs me everything." She looked up at him, eyes shining. "You might lose more than money," she warned. A faint smile touched his lips. "I already did. When you left." The kiss came softly this time. No cameras. No witnesses. No shock. Just two people meeting in the truth. It wasn't desperate. It was earned. The moment shattered when Alexander's phone vibrated. His expression changed the instant he read the message. "What is it?" she asked. He exhaled slowly. "They waited until I was vulnerable," he said. "My rivals are moving. And this time they're coming for you." Fear tightened her chest. "But you won't run," she said. "No," Alexander replied. "I'll protect you." She shook her head. "No. We protect each other." For the first time he nodded. As they stood together, danger closing in. One truth was undeniable. The billionaire CEO hadn't just fallen in love. He had finally chosen it. And love, they both knew, was the most dangerous risk of all. The threat didn't arrive loudly. It came quietly, through a hacked security feed, a frozen bank account, a car that followed her for 3 blocks too long. Alexander saw the pattern immediately. "They're testing us," he said. "Seeing how far I'll bend. And how far I'll break," she added. He didn't deny it. She was moved back into the penthouse that night, not as a guest but under protection. Armed guards. Secure elevators. Locked floors. "This feels like a cage," she said softly. "It's a fortress," Alexander replied. "There's a difference." She met his gaze. "Only if I'm choosing to stay." "You are," he said. She nodded. The attack came the next evening. A staged power outage. Elevators stalled. Lights cut across the tower. Chaos followed. Alexander's security team moved fast, but not fast enough. He was separated. Hands grabbed her in the darkness. She fought, heart racing, fear burning through her veins. And then gunfire. Shouts. Her name. Alexander found her shaking but unharmed, pulling her into his arms without thinking. For the first time he didn't stop himself. "I have you," he said, voice breaking. "I have you." She clung to him, breath uneven, realizing how close she'd come to losing everything. And how much she had to lose now. That night Alexander made a decision that stunned his board. He cancelled the merger that would have crushed his rivals, but exposed him instead. "They'll bleed me for this," one advisor warned. Alexander didn't flinch. "They already tried to take her," he replied. "There's nothing left they can threaten me with." The media called it reckless. The markets panicked. But she saw the truth. He had chosen love over power. And power had never forgiven that. Later, in the quiet aftermath, she found him standing at the window, shoulders tense. "You gave up everything," she said. He turned to her. "I gave up leverage." She stepped closer, resting her forehead against his chest. "No one has ever chosen me like this." His arms tightened around her. "No one has ever been worth it," he said. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, 2 people stood in the eye of a storm, no longer pretending, no longer hiding. Because the lie that brought them together had burned away. And what remained was real. The final move came from inside. Alexander discovered it at dawn. An executive he trusted, a man who had stood beside him for years, feeding information to his rivals. The wedding kiss hadn't started the war. It had exposed the cracks. "They never thought you'd choose her," his head of security said. "They thought love would weaken you." Alexander's voice was steady. They were wrong. The confrontation was brutal and public. Evidence was released. Deals unraveled. Arrests followed. The empire shook, but it didn't fall. Because Alexander had already done the unthinkable. He'd built something stronger than fear. She watched the fallout from a distance, heart pounding, knowing she was the reason this war had begun, and the reason it ended. When the dust finally settled, she found Alexander alone in the penthouse, jacket off, tie undone, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. "It's over," she said. He nodded. For the first time, yes. He walked toward her slowly. "No contracts," he said. "No protection clauses. No lies." He swallowed. "And if I walk away now?" "I'll let you," he replied. "Because choosing you means letting you choose me too." Tears filled her eyes. She stepped into his arms instead. The kiss they shared wasn't shocking. It didn't need witnesses. It was quiet. Certain. Permanent. Sunrise epilogue. Months later, another wedding filled the same kind of elite ballroom. But this time she wasn't invisible. She walked beside Alexander, not claimed, not protected, not hidden. Chosen. When asked how they met, she smiled and said, "At a wedding." He squeezed her hand and added, "And I was brave enough to risk everything." Because the truth was simple. The billionaire CEO hadn't kissed her to own her. He kissed her because for the first time in his life, he wanted something real.